Hey everybody! I can't wait to play for you today. Well, that's pretty much true every day, but especially today because things are just so crazy and fraught in the world. Music is my ultimate refuge, and I hope for my fans, it's the same. Music or a good film. Carolyn and I have been going through a renaissance of film watching on a Sony flat screen, one of the original ones. It's still working 20 years later. We've been urged to get even a bigger, gigantic one, but you know, it's taken up plenty of space, believe me. And it's a great image, but so what have we been watching? Well, we've been having a Stanley Baker festival. I don't know if my American fans recognize this name, but certainly my UK friends, probably many European fans, know Stanley Baker. He was a really excellent, manly man, English actor who flourished in the mid-60s. You may know him, he's maybe best known in this country for his appearance in Zulu. It was filmed by Cy Enfield from '61, I think it was. One of the last great spectacular films. I got a hold of a really good Blu-ray copy, high-def copy, that was a pleasure to see. I saw it in the theater when it came out. I saw it again at Yale. One of Martin Scorsese's favorite films, he likes to cite it. It's about a conflict in Natal, South Africa, between Zulu tribes and the last remnants of the British Empire in South Africa at that point. And particularly a skirmish at Rorke's Drift, which was basically a little military outpost with a Swedish priest and his daughter. And this film is loaded with fantastic English actors. I mean, English actors to me are the ne plus ultra of English-speaking actors anywhere. Certainly have it way over most American actors, I'm sorry to say. Well, it is their native tongue, isn't it? Anyway, this one features not only Stanley Baker, but Michael Caine, one of his first film appearances. It says in the credits, introducing Michael Caine, but in fact he'd made 3 or 4 other films previous to this one, but this was a very good showcase for him. And then you have people like Patrick McGee, who was so great in Marat Sade, Peter Brook's film version of that, and quite a few other films. He was a favorite of Joseph Losey, my favorite film director, and he's featured in The Criminal from 1953. Anyway, he has a very distinctive voice, Patrick McGee, but he's just excellent. I have also a version of Harold Pinter's The Caretaker, one of my favorite plays, in which he plays the tramp. He's an amazingly versatile protean actor, but you'll know him from his kind of nasal voice, very distinctive. Nigel Green is in Zulu, another great English. He's in a slew of Hammer horror films of the early '60s, including the Sherlock Holmes films with Peter Cushing. He's Dr. Watson. He's Hercules in the Seventh Voyage, in Jason and the Argonauts.
Hey, my name's
Is
Lisa.
a cabinet. Colin, you have to take that in the other room, okay? I have to chastise my wife for intruding upon my little reverie in filmmaking. Maybe I'll just drown her out here. Well, I think I'll take a brief pause there. That was, what was that? Oh, just a random collection of guitarisms. And I'm using all these new pedals that I got in the mail, as it were. One of them in particular is really revving things up beyond what I normally would play. But I don't know, let's see what you think. I'd like to get some feedback. I'm ready to go back into straight old finger picking acoustic guitar. But I like to exercise this side of my split personality on you here. I don't know. Let me know what you think. In the middle of all that was a little foray into an instrumental I gave to Jeff Buckley. The original title of it was And You Will, and it became a song called Mojo Pin, which is the first song on Jeff's Grace album. I played Grace itself under its original title, Rise Up to Be, on Tuesday's live stream with some of these new effects. And it sounded pretty good, I thought. What did you think? I'd like to interact more. You know, I hate passive aggressive audiences here, but if you get too aggressive with me, though, you will find your comments almost invariably deleted shortly after you leave them. And in some cases, I will close the iron door on interaction forever and a day into the future. Not that I'm that thin-skinned or thick-skinned or what have you, but you know, I think there's a common courtesy, there's an etiquette at play here. If you're going to make rude comments on somebody's side, i.e. troll them, you know, what's the point? And then I'm trying to elevate the conversation among us. So right now the conversation among us is all about the horrific scenes going down in Ukraine with Russia to the fore in terms of not just a land grab, but a soul grab and everything else that goes with it. I am just as upset and important by what's going on as anyone. And I, you know, like to build bridges to all sorts of cultures musically, and I have worked in Russia 5-6 times and always had a good time, and that was, you know, directly from on a person-to-person basis with Russian fans, who I found to be among the most enthusiastic to my music in the world. But as far as the government, yeah, you know, I have nothing further to add there. I just think it's kind of sickening to see us on a brink of all of us possibly being tossed into, you know, a huge conflagration like that, but bad enough for the people enduring it right now in Ukraine. My heart goes out to them, and I mean, I'm glued to the TV tube, but on the other hand, I'm loving the DVD player. The Netflix and this live streaming stuff, I don't, you know, this is Caroline's purview. She has to be up in all these new actors and shows and everything. That's part of her job. But me, I don't know, I'm still fascinated by stuff that fascinated me when I was a boy. And I like to revisit them to sort of figure out what made them tick in the first place, and, you know, whether they're still capable of engaging me. So tonight, I don't know, I started watching a great doc the other night. Caroline fell asleep, so I got to show it to her from the beginning, and that is the making of Alejandro Jodorowsky's Dune. Fantastic documentary that came out, I don't know, 10 years ago. I saw it at Film Forum. But basically, you know, there's this current version out there. I watched part one on a recent trip to Budapest on the plane. You know, I got the gist of it, I think. It didn't really suffer being in this miniaturized format with a dodgy sound, you know, as plain film viewing experiences usually go. But, you know, there were good things about it. I just never really liked the story very much. I read that novel, Frank Herbert's novel, back in the day. I got the drug references, you know, the spice and the melisma, you know, miasma, etc., etc. But I didn't really, as a science fiction buff, which I truly was, and in fact was a teaching assistant at a course at Yale called The History and Nature of Science Fiction, taught by Professor Derek Price, a British academician. There we read the classics like Olaf Stapledon, Last and First Men, and R.U.R. by Karel Čapek, and Roadside Picnic by the Strugatsky brothers, which became Stalker, Tarkovsky's Stalker, one of my favorite, all-time favorite films. I don't know about Dune, though. It was a trendy book back in the day, that's for sure. It had more to do, to me, to like sword and sorcery, fair, Fritz Lieber-esque stuff than sci-fi. But in any case, it's been made now, twice. But the original version, which was storyboarded out to the nth degree by Jodorowsky with Mobius, who was at that time just coming up, probably France's greatest comic graphic novelist. Giraud is his actual name. He was involved in making a presentation book. I think it was something like 900 pages, where every image, as it occurred to Jodorowsky in his retelling of the story, was storyboarded out with graphic close-ups. It looks, if you go through it, or you see pages from it, it's almost like a fast-moving comic book, but everything is spelled out in, as far as his vision goes for the film. And about, 1,000 were printed up privately and distributed all over Hollywood. This is the story. He had a great cast signed on. He had Mick Jagger signed up. He had Orson Welles signed up. He had his stars attached to the film. But no, everyone felt uneasy, I guess, in Hollywood. No producer, he took a lot of meetings and they all said it's fascinating, it's going to make an incredible film. But no one would actually throw it down, and it was all of, I think, a $3 million to $6 million budget, that's all. So it was going to be relatively inexpensive. I should mention he had H.R. Giger, who I was friends with, involved before Giger got involved in Alien. So he had all these first-class technical assistants working on this film in the visuals and special effects department. You'd think he had all the elements there, but the story concerns not only being derailed by Hollywood, who would not finance the film. Part of the problem was, I guess it timed out to about 9 hours, so they asked him to cut it down to 1.5 to 2, and he said, well, why not a 20-hour film? Let's really go for it. And this is the kind of thinking that would not go down well. It was studio heads. We're basically business people, but anyway, he got derailed, and the rights eventually went to David Lynch, who made not his greatest film by a long shot version of Dune. I preferred vastly some of his other films to the Dune version, but it was what it was, and now there's this one, and it's the same director who did the sequel to Blade Runner 2046, which I found to be a snore. Sorry. Anyway, I'll look at part 2, but if you see this documentary, and you might want to go out of your way to stream it or purchase it, it's that good. One of the main takeaways, revelations at the end, is how much images that were Jodorowsky's vision, that weren't even in the book, later got bastardized and adapted into current science fiction films. Almost, I would say, note by note, but that would be a musical plagiarism. This is image by image. So much that later became part and parcel of big screen science fiction entertainment was lifted out of this book of ideas. It was basically an open source book to quote and plagiarize from. And he had a last laugh, though, because he said, well, I went into a theater when the Dune of David Lynch came out, and I felt much better. I said, this is terrible. Just kidding. Anyway, David Lynch is great. I don't mean to disparage him. Didn't like Dune. Go see this film, or rent it, or buy it if you get a chance. The Making of Alejandro Jodorowsky's Dune, and then go see, revisit El Topo, or The Holy Mountain if you want to see some amazing surrealist cinema, Mexican surrealist cinema. Uh, and I guess that's all I got time for today. I have a lot of other stories and things. What I'm reading now, okay, I got a hold of, since R. Crumb and Aileen, his wife, are having a retrospective of their work right now in Paris at a big art gallery, which some friends of mine are no doubt visiting as we speak. Check out R. Crumb's sketchbook, volume 1 and 2. Here's volume 2. It was published by Taschen, who do fantastic graphic art books. And you could turn to any random page in here and be just awesomely inspired by the fecundity of imagery and his technical dexterity. And Crumb is a modern master, and I'm so glad he exists and is still alive and kicking. He had a panel devoted to the Omicron virus recently. That was, I think, the first new work he'd done in a couple of years, which is amazing. I think I posted it on the timeline if you want to go back and check from last week. Anyway, long may he wave or continue to make these great comics. What can I say? The 60s were a lot brighter due to R. Crumb's influence in the culture back then. I know he got Me Too'd to death, and there's still controversy swirling around it. But all I can say is I'm really glad that he did what he did and that he continues to flourish. And so that's all I gotta say for the moment. Thanks for listening. And I will see you on Saturday. All right. Be well. Love you guys. Take care.